What happens when we begin to realize that the 200-year experiment we've called the American healthcare system has failed? Tune in to Awakened Wellness with Mylaine Riobe, MD, and join the conversation about how to heal our broken system to reverse our current health crisis. The entire world is looking for answers, and the truth is hidden in plain sight. Learn how spirituality, ancient traditions, and cutting-edge science are merging to create a new paradigm of wellness every Wednesday at 12 a.m. and 12 p.m. Eastern Time, with live video shows every first and third Wednesday at 12 p.m. Eastern Time, when you can call in and ask the questions that matter most to you.
And we're live.
Thank you, Rachel. Hello and welcome to Awakened Wellness. I'm your host, Dr. Mylaine Riobe, and we are live here on Dream Vision 7 Radio. So give us a call. I always love to hear the comments and answer any questions you may have. Our number here is area code 646-558-8656, and hit *9 to raise your hand, and I'd love to hear from you and answer questions today. So today's topic is type 2 diabetes. Very, very common disease globally, in particular in the United States. 9th leading cause of death annually, and there are approximately 37 million Americans with diabetes. Direct deaths from diabetes, again, it's the 9th leading cause of death. But diabetes contributes to other more common leading causes of death, such as heart disease and cancer. So it's a little bit misleading when we see that it's the 9th leading cause of death, but it does cause the most common causes of death, which are heart attacks and cancers. And so it's a really important topic, and it's not easy to treat, right? Yes, of course, there are medications that we can prescribe to treat it. Unfortunately, the medications don't prevent the long-term complications of diabetes, although they may slow them down somewhat. And so it's important to discuss the underlying causes of diabetes, because it's only through the causes of conditions that we can successfully treat them. Although the medications that we have out there allow the body to manage the diabetes a bit better, because the root causes are not treated by those medications, we still see people with reduced function in their lives, increased risk of heart attacks, cancers, and other conditions. And so what I wanted to do today is focus on the underlying causes, so that not only will the medications assist to reduce blood sugar levels, but also some lifestyle modifications will hopefully assist to treat the underlying root causes, so that we can thwart or reduce or even reverse diabetes. So what is diabetes? Diabetes is essentially the body's inability to take sugar out of the bloodstream and drive it into the body's cells. So we're made up of about 70 trillion cells in the human body. Every single one of those cells uses sugar for energy. And what happens, of course, is we eat our food that will contain various forms of sugars, whether in the form of carbohydrates directly or in the form of fats. Some proteins can be converted to carbs and sugars as well, but the main sources are going to be carbs and fats. And when we eat those foods, they get digested in our gastrointestinal tracts. And then once they're in their very smallest forms, they are absorbed through the gastrointestinal tract into the bloodstream. And then now your heart propels that sugar all around, so that every cell in your body can obtain the sugar, take it in, so it's critically important for your cells to actually take the sugar into themselves, and for the sugar not to just float around in your body. And so there are very, very tightly regulated mechanisms that allow the body to do that. There are hormones that are involved. There are minerals and vitamins that are involved that draw the sugar into the cell. Once the sugar goes into your cell, it's then converted into energy. So sugar by itself is a stored form of energy. So in order to make usable currency in the human body, that sugar has to be converted to the actual currency, which is called ATP, or adenosine triphosphate, through a cycle called the Krebs cycle or the citric acid cycle. That cycle also requires a bunch of vitamins and minerals to work. And it also requires oxygen. And so in order for someone not to have diabetes, that has to work properly. So you absorb your sugar from your food into the bloodstream. As soon as your body identifies there's sugar in the bloodstream, it asks for insulin so that the insulin can draw the sugar into the cells where they can be converted to energy. And then the purpose of that is so that your body can function. So every single cell in your body has a whole list of functions it has to perform in an ongoing basis, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And so in order to perform those functions, whether it's vision, whether it's speaking, whether it's breathing, heart beating, thinking, hearing, moving, reproducing, whether it's fighting off infections, whether it's killing cancer cells, digestion, absorption, everything we can think of that the human body does, it does through the use of sugar. And so sugar isn't all bad, right? It's when the sugar can't be properly used that it becomes toxic. So your body does not want sugar in your bloodstream. So it has to go into your bloodstream because that's the transportation highway. And so it's got to get on the highway to get distributed to all the cells. As soon as it arrives in all the cells, your body wants the cells to drive them in, drive the sugar in so that it's not sitting in the bloodstream. And why your body doesn't want sugar in the bloodstream is because sugar is nasty and sticky and gunky. And so your body wants it to be gone as quickly as possible inside the cells. Once it's inside the cells, it's in a more regulated environment where it can be used. When it's in the bloodstream, it's dangerous. And so your body accepts that for a short period of time because it understands it needs to feed itself. But just like when you spill a sugary drink on a countertop, it's sticky, it's nasty. It's the same way in your bloodstream. It's sticky, it's gunky, and there's a whole bunch of other stuff floating around in your bloodstream as well. And so as that stuff is floating by and there's sugar laying around, it starts to kind of clump on everything, and it starts to make things sticky. And they start to form, plaques and masses inside of the bloodstream if that sugar is not tightly regulated and removed. And so that's how we form plaques that eventually can lead to heart attacks and all kinds of other conditions and problems. And so when someone develops diabetes, we have to ask ourselves, well, what led to that diagnosis? What happened? And there tend to be some common things that we blame it on, one being obesity, being overweight. And so one of the common recommendations that we make for someone who is overweight is that they lose weight. And in the reduction of the calories being taken in and in the increase of exercise, we can sometimes see blood sugar starts to regulate itself better. But that's not always the case, right? Some people lose weight and they still don't have proper blood sugar regulation. Some people aren't overweight at all and they have diabetes. Most of the time, though, people are a little bit overweight or perhaps even obese. And so how do we diagnose diabetes? How do we know someone actually has it? There are a few things. It's mostly by blood work. One is a blood test called a hemoglobin A1C, or glycosylated hemoglobin. So again, because the sugar has to be in your bloodstream, one of the most common things in your blood are your blood cells. So the cells that carry oxygen throughout your body can also get sticky from sugar. And so when there's too much sugar in the bloodstream, your blood cells actually start to accumulate the sugar. The sugar starts to stick to the blood cells. That can actually be measured, and that's called glycosylated hemoglobin. So your red blood cells, which carry the hemoglobin, which carry the oxygen, will accumulate the sugar around themselves, and that can actually be measured. If you see a hemoglobin A1C of 6.5 or greater, that is considered diabetes. Another way is to measure blood sugar levels. So if you have a blood sugar level that's randomly taken, whether you've eaten or not eaten, and it's greater than 200, that is considered to be also diabetes. You can also have what's called a glucose tolerance test, where you're actually challenged with sugar. In other words, you're given a sugar solution to drink, and then your blood is checked 2 hours later. And if it's over 200, then that is criteria for diabetes. Again, 1 out of every 10 Americans has diabetes, which is much higher than the global level of diabetes. The global level is 1 out of every roughly 20, 1 out of every 18 to 20 people. Here in the US, it's 1 out of every 10, and it's increasing. But one of the things that's curious is sometimes even when people drastically reduce the sugar in their diet, they still have abnormal blood sugar levels, right? And then they're left scratching their heads, wondering, like, wait, I've followed, this diet, I've dropped my carbs, and my blood sugar levels are not getting any better. And that's because it's not just about sugar, right? It's about the fact that your body can't handle sugar. It's not about whether you've eaten too much sugar or not. It's actually about what your body does with that sugar once it gets into the bloodstream. That's what's critical about diabetes. So sometimes even dropping the amount of sugar that you eat will not make a large difference. And that's because your blood sugar is regulated by other factors and not just by how much sugar you eat. So while it's important to reduce the amount of sugar that is in your diet, it's also important to look at, well, how is that sugar managed in the body? One of the things that's evolving as being very, very important for blood sugar regulation are minerals. And unfortunately, there's not a lot known about minerals and their relationship to diabetes, but what we're finding is that imbalances of minerals, magnesium, calcium, selenium, boron, iron in particular, and chromium, and iodine as well. That's another one. And not just deficiencies of minerals, sometimes it's excesses of minerals can throw off blood sugar metabolism. We do understand that chromium in particular actually activates the hormone insulin. Insulin is the hormone that is chiefly responsible for driving the sugar into the cell. But insulin relies on other factors, chromium being one. And if chromium is deficient, then your insulin can't function. And if your insulin can't function, you can't drive sugar into the cells. And then they'll just stay outside in the bloodstream and cause trouble. The other factors are selenium, whether it's too high or too low, has been associated with difficulty with managing blood sugar. Iodine, excesses of iodine, too much iodine has been shown to dysregulate blood sugar metabolism and is associated with diabetes. Magnesium deficiency has also been shown to be related to diabetes, and calcium, elevations of calcium or deficiencies of calcium. So it's not either that, it's not globally that, mineral deficiencies cause diabetes. It's the imbalance of the minerals. And so then we have to ask ourselves, well, why does that happen, right? Why can I have excesses of certain minerals and deficiencies of others? That has to do with other vitamins and minerals as well. So we always teach that vitamins and minerals don't work in a vacuum. The most common thing I have my clients ask me is, well, my calcium levels in my bloodstream are high. Should I be taking calcium? And what's interesting is when we test people for vitamin and mineral deficiencies in integrative medicine, we don't check their blood levels. We check their cellular levels. We actually check their immune cells, the inside of their immune cells for nutrient levels. And sometimes when a level is too high in the bloodstream, it's because it can't get into the cell. And so what we sometimes see is the calcium level on the outside of the cell or in the bloodstream is high, but the calcium level inside the cell is low. And so they are technically calcium deficient, even though their calcium level in the bloodstream is too high. And so there's a reason for that. And that's because calcium doesn't work by itself. So if you have other vitamin and mineral deficiencies, you're not going to be able to drive calcium into your cell, just like you're not going to be able to drive sugar into your cell if you have certain vitamin and mineral imbalances. And so because it's like a big symphony, they all work together in ways we don't quite yet understand, right? So when we look at studies on minerals and diabetes, first of all, there aren't that many studies. And so we're having to infer a lot of things, and we don't have a lot of hardcore evidence for them. But there is a strong correlation, a strong suggestion that nutrient imbalances are related to diabetes and not just overeating of sugar. The other thing that I've always asked, myself and tried to find answers for is obesity really a cause of diabetes, or are they both results of something else, right? The same thing that causes people to be overweight, very likely, is also causing the diabetes. And so we sometimes have to look a little bit deeper than even that, right? And when we ask ourselves, why do people gain weight? Like, what's the issue there? What's happening there? Very often it's because their metabolism has been driven downward, much of the time by malabsorption. Now, it can also be poor diet. So if you're eating a bunch of junk that has no real nutritional value, you're going to drive your metabolism down because you're not going to be able to efficiently use that for fuel. And so your metabolism is essentially your body's ability to make and use energy. And if that's driven down by either a really bad diet or a gut issue that leads to the same result as a bad diet, right? If you can't absorb your food, even if you're eating really good food, you're not going to be, you are going to be, I should say, nutritionally challenged, right? And your metabolism will drop. And if your metabolism drops, that means you're not going to be able to burn and use fuel, which means you're going to store more fat. And so you will consequently gain weight. And so we have to really begin to look at diabetes as a nutritional issue, not so much in the overconsumption of calories, although that is one of the main things, but also in the body's inability to use even good calories, right? And usually that's, again, a gut issue. And when it's a gut issue, you will, by default, have vitamin and mineral deficiencies. And so it becomes this vicious circle. And then we have to ask ourselves, well, where can we stop the circle to intervene, right? The best place to stop the circle is where it's easiest to stop it. which is in looking at the gastrointestinal system and looking at whether or not there are absorption issues for that client. If there are absorption issues, those have to be corrected, because if you don't correct those, that person will remain vitamin and mineral depleted and challenged, and they will not be able to make the gains that they want to make. So we're coming up on our first commercial break. You are listening to Awakened Wellness. I'm your host, Dr. Mylaine Riobe, and we're live on Dream Vision 7 Radio. When we come back on the other side of this commercial break, we'll answer some questions and keep talking about type 2 diabetes. Thank you.
What happens when we begin to realize that the 200-year experiment we've called the American healthcare system has failed? Learn how spirituality, ancient traditions, and cutting-edge science are merging to create a new paradigm of wellness on Awakened Wellness with Mylaine Riobe, MD. Tune in every Wednesday at 12 a.m. and 12 p.m. Eastern Time with live video shows every first and third Wednesday at 12 p.m. Eastern, when you can call in and ask Dr. Mylaine the questions that matter most to you. Dr. Mylaine is the medical director of the Riobe Institute of Integrative Medicine in Jupiter, Florida. For more information, visit RIOBE-integrativemedicine.com. Dream Vision 7 Radio Network invites you in for this dynamic, forward-thinking show.
Join Dr. Bernie Siegel on Mind Health Matters every Thursday and Friday, 12 a.m. and 12 p.m. Eastern Time on syndicated Dream Vision 7 Radio Network. Bernie will draw from his inspirational personal journey, offering us special nuggets of his sacred wisdom weaved through his delightful stories. Listen in as Bernie reminds us to be fully engaged in life.
Ever wonder what it's like to have your own radio show? Well, wonder no longer, because you can dip into the radio airwaves by being host for the day on syndicated Dream Vision 7 Radio Network. It's a fabulous way to get your radio feet wet. It's an opportunity to market your business, modality, or book. Have a guest, mention a sponsor, and take callers. Or you may want to facilitate a lesson by going solo. It's up to you. Listeners can be online, mobile, in cars with Bluetooth, or listen through Amazon's Echo by asking, Alexa, play Dream Vision 7 Radio Network. For more details, go to dreamvision7radio.com and click on Host for the Day.
Looking for a fun and relaxing getaway? Omega Rest and Rejuvenation Retreats are a great way to unwind and renew your spirit. Sit and read in the garden, explore the woodland trails, or try a daily yoga or meditation class. You can stretch your body, quiet your mind, and do as much or as little as you choose. Located in Rhinebeck, New York, just 90 miles north of New York City, Omega's natural environment and quiet pace allow for extraordinary experiences to unfold. Learn more at eomega.org.
Delight your kids with an enchanting journey by reading the Paper Doll Kids children's book by Deborah Beauvais and Janine Sullivan. There's even a catchy tune, Kids for Love Song, produced by Bob Sherwood and sung by kids just like yours. The story weaves around 7 paper dolls flying around the world doing good deeds as they bring important attention to our endangered animal friends. There's even a magical ring with a universal message. Kids become interested in service projects, action through compassion, and planting seeds that nurture positive change. The Paper Doll Kids and Kids for Love Song are a production of the Kids for Love Project. Get the book now on Amazon Kindle and the song on CD Baby or iTunes.
This is Dream Vision 7 Radio Network, uniting mankind with universal love. Our shows are created from the heart, bringing each listener to a place of divine enlightenment. Breathe, relax, and enjoy. Let life flow.
And we're back.
Thank you, Rachel. Welcome back to Awakened Wellness. I'm your host, Dr. Mylaine Riobe. I am the medical director of the Riobe Institute of Integrative Medicine here in Jupiter, Florida. And I am double board certified in the fields of obstetrics and gynecology, as well as the exciting new field of integrative medicine. Integrative medicine was accepted as a new medical specialty back in 2014 by the American Board of Physician Specialties. And so it's a very exciting field. It's more holistic, and it brings in very ancient systems of medicine and cutting edge technology that our mainstream medical model doesn't use. So it's a great tool, and it helps me to keep one foot in each world so that I have a very unique perspective on medical conditions and prevention of medical conditions in particular. I also studied traditional Chinese medicine for 5 years, and that gave me a phenomenal overview of prevention and how to really look at root causes of diseases to treat them better. And maybe even more importantly, how to treat the root causes of symptoms before they become diseases in order to prevent those diseases in the first place. So we're talking about diabetes from a different angle today. We're looking at things that are not commonly talked about, but that may be more associated with the actual root causes of diabetes. The diabetes medications that we use help to reduce the blood sugar levels in the bloodstream. But unfortunately, again, they don't prevent the long-term complications. And so we really want to also look at what are the root causes? What is causing this condition in people in alarming numbers all throughout the world? And what can we do to intervene and start to reverse the trajectory, right? So we had some questions come in. Question, been off medication, feel better, less pain. Why does diabetes medication cause body aches? Well, most of the diabetes medications work on the liver. The liver is responsible for detoxing, right? Removing toxins from the body, regulating inflammation. And because diabetes medications can disturb liver function, they can then cause pain. The other thing that many medications do that is not well recognized in our mainstream model is they can cause significant nutrient deficiencies. Most medications are not natural, not all of them, but most of them are artificial. When you introduce an artificial substance into the body, which is a natural substance, right? Your body is a natural substance. So when you introduce something artificial into it, you're challenging it, you're causing it stress. Sometimes that stress is worth it, right? Because your body is already stressed because you have a disease. So sometimes stressing it out in a different way might be more beneficial than continuing to allow the stress of the disease to take hold and to cause problems and potentially death. So you're choosing between lessers of evils is basically what you're doing. And so once you take that medication, it goes through your liver first. And so again, your liver is one of your main detoxification organs. And so if you drop something artificial into your liver, it will have a problem detoxing it because it's not natural. So when our livers evolved, they evolved in an environment where they would detox things that were natural. And so as more and more artificial things were introduced into the environment, the liver became more and more and more challenged. And we're seeing that, right? When we get these incidental reports on CAT scans and ultrasounds sometimes where they see signs of what's being called fatty liver, right? Your liver can't manage fats. It's just hoarding the fats because it can't do its work because it's bogged down by a bunch of toxins and artificial products. And so as your liver works harder and harder and harder, it requires vitamins and minerals to function. And so the more you make your liver work, the more vitamins and minerals or gas it's going to require to function. And so you're going to get vitamin and mineral deficiencies as a result. The most famous one is statins causing CoQ10 deficiencies, right? Statins cause way more than just CoQ10 deficiencies, but that's just what we recognize. birth control pills also cause B vitamin deficiencies in particular, because they're artificial. And so that's probably where the aches and pains are coming from. What's the next question? Is diabetes hereditary? That's a great question. I guess you'd have to clarify that by asking if diabetes is genetic, right? Diabetes is not genetic, although it does run in families. For those of you who listened to the last podcast, we talked about a study that was done on rats by the University of Cambridge in 2011, where the mothers of the rats, while they were pregnant with the baby rats, were fed low protein diets. And there was a gene that was disrupted with this low protein diet that led to these baby rats developing diabetes later on in their lives. And so we get this idea that, oh, well, that must be genetic, but no, it's not genetic. As you recall from the last podcast, it's not genetic. It's not that you inherited a bad gene from one of your parents. It's that you had normal genes that then got damaged. That is not genetic. That is environmental. So diabetes runs in families because of the passing on of the bad environment, right? So bad environments run in families too. We tend to inherit what we eat from our parents. We tend to inherit how we think from our parents. Many of our behaviors are inherited from our parents and other authoritative figures. And so we then begin to misinterpret things as being, genetic. Oh, my mom had it, therefore, I'm going to get it too. But that's not really the case. There are lifestyle interventions that can be done that will take you on a different trajectory so that you avoid those diseases. So that's a really wonderful question. Where are we here? I'm on a high protein diet. So am I preventing my body from needed sugars? Will this diet hurt me? Should I still eat carbs? That's hard to answer. We'd have to know the quality of the proteins that you're eating and what you mean by high protein. You can safely eat, 1 gram of protein per kilogram of body weight, up to, in some cases, 2 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight. Some bodybuilders will eat 1 gram of protein per pound of lean body weight. And so your body can tolerate quite a bit of protein. But there are a couple caveats to that, right? You have to be sure that you don't have a kidney disorder. Kidney disorders are increased in people with diabetes. So you want to make sure that your kidney function is normal. And so long as your kidney function is normal, you should be able to eat a high protein diet as long as the quality of the protein is good, right? So we always talk about making sure that your proteins have not been given hormones, making sure that your protein sources have not been given genetically modified grains or grains grown with pesticides. These are all things that make our proteins toxic. And so as long as that's not the case, you should be okay. Do you still need to eat sugar? That's debatable. Protein can be converted to sugar, and you're probably getting some fat in your diet. So if you're getting some fat in your diet and some protein in your diet, you probably don't need to increase your carbs per se. Your body knows how to make carbs, so it can make carbs out of just about anything. The reason for that is because it's essential to your survival. Your body uses carbs and sugar to make its energy. So it can convert fat to sugar, it can convert protein to sugar, and of course it can convert carbs to sugar because carbs are made out of sugar. And so you don't necessarily have to target sugar to put in your body if you're doing that. Now, if you're lifting weights, for example, or if you're doing fairly intense exercising, then you probably want to have some sugar in your diet before and after your workout, because your muscles really do need sugar in a very usable form to function and recover. So The answer is it depends, but I hope I gave you enough information to answer that. It's a great question. Another one, if I don't eat breakfast, my blood sugar rises. Once I eat lunch, it drops down. Why? That's a phenomenal question. So the reason for that is because it's not just your diet that controls your blood sugar. Your liver also controls your blood sugar. And if you starve yourself, your liver will start pumping sugar out into your bloodstream. Because we're not supposed to starve ourselves, right? And if you have a sugar dysregulation issue, if you have diabetes, it's going to be harder for your body to take that sugar out of the bloodstream once the liver's pumped it out there. And so you're going to see a spike in your blood sugar levels. So we always recommend for diabetics not to skip too many meals. Breakfast is probably the most important meal of the day. And I know, with intermittent fasting now, that's going out of style. But for me, I always fall back to traditional Chinese medicine. They have 4,000 years of experience, and their medicine has not changed in 4,000 years. And it's still just as effective today as it was then. And so in Chinese medicine, fasting is not recommended. And so I tend to default to that. For most people. So if you are in a depleted state, fasting is going to deplete you more. And your body will not respond well to that, if that makes sense. So it might be better to eat breakfast. So, and you can play around with it. You can try different types of diets, check your blood sugar and see how it responds, right? So that way you have a more personalized approach to that. So it's a great question. Let's see what else. Oh, I heard that a couple shots of whiskey can lower blood sugar. I don't know that it lowers blood sugar. It doesn't raise blood sugar. So if that answers the question, and I think beer also doesn't raise blood sugar, having something to do with insulin production. But I would not substitute whiskey for your metformin or your diabetes medications. Definitely don't have the evidence to do that yet. Alcohol in general has a ton of carbohydrates. So if you're looking at wine in particular, a ton of sugar in wine. In fact, a glass of wine is a meal, 300 calories, sometimes more. And so generally speaking, I tend to recommend that diabetics stay away from alcohol. But that's a good question. Let me see. I think there were a couple more. Oh, if I take my diabetes medication, can I still have my ice cream? I love my daily ice cream. Hate to give it up. Honestly, the issue with ice cream is probably more the dairy than the sugar. But both of those are probably not great if you're diabetic. So I would look at something else, maybe a non-dairy, and I wouldn't eat it every day, to be honest. You just want to be careful with a lot of sugar. Now if that's, I guess it depends on what it's made out of, right? But I would definitely stay away from dairy forms of ice cream, and maybe vary it with some other things that may have a little bit less sugar in them, especially if you're diabetic. But really, if you have a little bit of ice cream here and there, it's not going to be the end of the world. But if you're having a lot of ice cream and it's more of a craving, then that's something that you'll want to get under control. So that's a good question. Did I get them all? Oh, here's another one. How do low carb products work? My bread says in big print 3 carbs, but on the back it says 13 carbs. Yeah, you have to watch the labeling, right? They're always sneaking some things in on people. Grains in general are going to have carbs. It's very hard to avoid carbs with grains because grains are carbs. And so bread is going to be, more or less a grain. Low carbs, if you want to avoid carbs, it's a keto diet might be the closest thing. There's also some evidence that a Mediterranean diet, which includes carbs, is actually very good for type 2 diabetes. So again, it's not a matter of carbohydrate intake. It's also a matter of the quality of the carbohydrates. Are they clean? Make sure they're not genetically modified. Make sure they have not been coated, grown with pesticides. There's a lot more to diabetes than just the fact that we're consuming sugar. The types of sugar, the high fructose corn syrup and, the artificial types of sugars that have, made their way into our diet is very likely a huge culprit. And then toxins, right? Toxins, again, your liver has a lot to do with removing toxins. And we have 80,000 chemicals floating around in our atmosphere, in our soil, in our water, in our food. And again, all that goes to the liver to be detoxed. Also goes to the gut, the gastrointestinal system. And so that's why we have so many gut issues today and so much difficulty with detoxification. And that all contributes to diabetes as well. But that's a great question. I think there was one more. I've been having muscle spasms at night. Is this just because of age, or could it be a sign I'm not eating enough carbs? Muscle spasms are either going to be some inflammation or deficiencies of most commonly minerals. We talked about that a little bit earlier. The best thing to do is to be tested, to have what's called a micronutrient test done. And to make sure it's a cellular test, not just a blood test. You can also have urine testing done for total body storage of minerals and vitamins. And that way you'll know exactly what your needs actually are. And again, if you have a lot of vitamin and mineral deficiencies, then you should strongly suspect you have a gastrointestinal problem. In particular, if you're eating a reasonable diet, right? If you're eating just junk food all the time, then it's very likely you have both a gastrointestinal issue and a bad diet. But getting tested is really important, because without that information, you just can't quite tell what it is. And you start guessing and doing this trial and error. But muscle spasms are typically either you're dehydrated, or there are nutrient deficiencies that are causing your muscles to spasm, or there's inflammation causing muscle spasms or difficulty in your muscles contracting and relaxing at night. And I hear on commercials that taking this pill along with diet and exercise can lower A1C. If I don't exercise or diet, I'm guessing it would not lower it. So what if I just do diet and exercise? Exercise does help. That helps to drive the sugar into the body because your muscles are going to increase demand for sugar. So regular exercise is extremely important with diabetes. Because you're placing a demand on your muscles, and your muscles use up probably more sugar than any other system in your body. And so they are a really good way to just kind of drive sugar out of the bloodstream. But again, diet and exercise, if you have nutrient deficiencies and a gut issue, will very likely not be enough, but it's always a foundational beginning. Eating, nutritious vegetables, green leafy vegetables, very bright colored vegetables, good proteins. Protein buffers sugar levels. So when you eat enough protein in your diet, it smooths out blood sugar levels better so that you don't have these big spikes and crashes. When you eat too much sugar, what happens is your body can't use all that sugar at once. And so you get this big surge of sugar in the bloodstream, and then your body goes into panic and it asks insulin to come and drive that sugar out of your bloodstream to make it go into your cells. And so you get this big insulin spike. And then insulin comes and takes all the sugar out of the bloodstream, and then you get a sugar crash, right? And that's responsible for a lot of cravings. So when your sugar crashes, you get hungry and you want to eat again. And then you have this yo-yo back and forth effect. When you eat enough protein consistently throughout the day, your blood sugar levels are much more controllable, if you will. So I think we have another commercial break coming up. You're listening to Awakened Wellness. I'm your host, Dr. Mylaine Riobe, and we will be right back. Thank you.
What happens when we begin to realize that the 200-year experiment we've called the American healthcare system has failed? Learn how spirituality, ancient traditions, and cutting-edge science are merging to create a new paradigm of wellness on Awakened Wellness with Mylaine Riobe, MD. Tune in every Wednesday at 12 a.m. and 12 p.m. Eastern Time with live video shows every first and third Wednesday at 12 p.m. Eastern, when you can call in and ask Dr. Mylaine the questions that matter most to you. Dr. Mylaine is the medical director of the Riobe Institute of Integrative Medicine in Jupiter, Florida. For more information, visit RIOBE-integrativemedicine.com. Dream Vision 7 Radio Network invites you in for this dynamic, forward-thinking show.
EDECIA is a U.S. nonprofit dedicated to the dream of ending childhood malnutrition for millions of children around the world through the manufacture of Plumpy Nut and other nutrient-rich, peanut-based, ready-to-use foods. EDECIA has already delivered life and hope to nearly 1 million children in over 26 developing countries. To find out how you can join EDECIA's dream of ending childhood malnutrition, please visit edeciaglobal.org.
What if dreams can diagnose your life? What if we can meet the love of our life in dreams? Join host Kat O'Keefe-Canovis, the #1 internationally best-selling author of Dreams That Can Save Your Life, written with Duke University medical doctor Larry Burke. Dreaming Healing is where we'll explore dreams, research, and interpret dreams from you, the caller. Dreaming Healing shows can be heard every Tuesday at 9 a.m. and 9 p.m. Eastern, with live shows on the first and third evenings at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific Time on syndicated Dream Vision 7 Radio Network. Come live your dreams out loud with Kat.
Are you searching for a way to help create global change? Dream Vision 7 Radio Network's vision is to have an eclectic group of radio hosts dedicated to educating, enlightening, and helping humankind with positive messages and tools that enhance lives using different modalities and programs. If you would like to join our team and help illuminate the universe, call Deborah at 508-226-1723 or Deborah at dreamvision7radio.com. This is Dream Vision 7 Radio Network, uniting mankind with universal love. Our shows are created from the heart, bringing each listener to a place of divine enlightenment. Breathe, relax, and enjoy. Let life flow.
And we're back.
Thank you, Rachel. You're listening to Awakened Wellness, and I'm your host, Dr. Mylaine Riobe. We had a question come in, how to make an appointment. So you can email us at info@riobeintegrativemedicine.com. We do web visits as well, or phone visits. And so we're here in Jupiter, Florida. If you want to, still a little cold up there, wherever most people are. So if you want to come to the sunshine and the warmth for a visit, you're always welcome. For more information, you can always visit our website, riobeintegrativemedicine.com. Riobe is spelled R-I-O-B as in boy, E as in Edward. And also my book, Faith, F-A-I-T-H, is available on Amazon. It's in hardcover, Kindle, and you can also get it on Audible and Kobo Rakuten. Always have trouble pronouncing that. So with the last few minutes we have, I just wanted to give people just kind of a global idea of what they can do if they have been diagnosed with diabetes. So the first thing we always tell people is do not stop your medications without medical advice. And so again, what we like to tell people is we'd like to render your medication obsolete so that you don't need it. So if you have diabetes and we can, correct the underlying root causes of the diabetes, which most commonly, again, are gastrointestinal in nature and leading to nutritional deficiencies and also toxins. Once we can kind of get to those things, we can see blood sugar levels start to go down. And then what happens is that the doses of the medications need to be lowered, right? And so at some point, what we would like to do is to have those medications not be necessary. Sorry, Rachel, do we have a question?
No, I'm sorry. It was a sneeze.
Oh, bless you. All right. Yeah. So we like to try and render the medications obsolete if possible, so as people are monitoring their blood sugar levels, if they see their blood sugar levels are dropping and dropping and dropping, then we could reduce medication dosages and things like that. So that's the first thing we always recommend is don't stop your medications without medical advice. The second thing we do is we look at, again, what are the underlying causes, right? In traditional Chinese medicine, there's a pattern called damp heat, which is a hot inflammatory process, and it's not terribly easy to treat. It's a little bit challenging to treat in traditional Chinese medicine, but diet and exercise are cornerstones of that. Getting on the right diet, getting on a diet that's going to have the vitamins and the minerals that you're deficient in, so that those levels can come up. Also being on a diet that doesn't cause inflammation, and with the ice cream issue, especially if it's dairy, that's a very inflammatory food, right? And so diabetes is an inflammatory condition. And so if you're adding more inflammatory foods to an already inflamed system, you're going to get more inflammation. And so, we usually generally put people on an anti-inflammatory type of diet. And then again, testing is so important in the case of diabetes, not just your blood work and your blood sugar levels, but also looking at the gastrointestinal system. Many, vast majority of diabetics will have a gastrointestinal problem. They'll have an infection, they'll have inflammation, they will have food intolerances, and they will not absorb their food well. That poor absorption of their food will lead to vitamin and mineral deficiencies, which will lead to a vicious circle, because with those vitamin and mineral deficiencies, now you can't manage your own blood sugar. And so your blood sugar levels remain high. And then you get tired, right? Because if your body can't drive sugar into the cells, you can't use that sugar for energy, and you will have less energy to use. And so you'll feel tired. And then you will also gain weight. And so again, it's this chicken and egg game, right? Which came first? Was it the overweight that came first, or the diabetes that came first? They're both victims of the same causes. And if you really want to get to the heart of diabetes, you have to do three things, really. You have to look at the gastrointestinal system. You have to look at vitamin and mineral levels on a cellular level. And the third thing is you have to look at toxic burden, right? You have to look at the liver. And your blood work will not show if you have a liver problem most of the time. This is a cellular liver issue. It's not a blood work type of thing. It's not going to show up as elevated liver enzymes, for example. It will show up as inflammation. It will show up, maybe if you get a CAT scan, they might see some irregularities in the liver. But really, we can tell based on Chinese medicine diagnosis. Someone has liver stagnation. Sometimes they will experience bloating. That's one of the big signs. Sometimes they will experience light sensitivity if it's really bad. Sometimes they'll have floaters in their vision. Dizziness sometimes is a sign. And then when we look at their tongue, it can vary. Sometimes it's red, sometimes it's what we call a little bit dim. So it has like almost like a pale purplish hue to it. Sometimes it's normal. And then sometimes the pulse will be kind of what we call wiry. It feels like a guitar string under the skin. And that's how we can tell if someone has liver congestion. You can be tested for that as well. You know, you can be tested for toxic load, heavy metals, things like that. So those are really some of the pillars of diabetes treatment. It's not something that's quick and dirty. You know, it's something that takes several years to really look into and, you know, reverse or right the ship. So of course, you know, commitment is important, and every day making sure that you take steps, you know, so everything that goes in your mouth, you want to ask yourself, is this moving me in a better direction or not? You know, is this something I'm doing because I'm stressed out and I want to eat something just to feel better? And if that's the case, then you want to analyze, like, well, why am I doing that? Right? Is it that my diet is not what it needs to be? Am I not eating enough protein? Am I eating poor quality carbs, and that's causing that yo-yo effect, which is causing me to have cravings? Do I have too much stress in my life? You know, these are all questions we need to ask ourselves. Of course, the best way to really sort through the whole thing is to see a board certified integrative medical doctor. In our mainstream medical model, an endocrinologist would manage the diabetes. And again, you know, with diet, exercise, and perhaps medication. But on the integrative medicine side of the world, we would look at the underlying causes and work in conjunction with the endocrinologist. So in integrative medicine, we don't, you know, turn our backs on mainstream medicine or not use it. We use it. We use it for its strengths. But we also understand that one of its strengths is not managing chronic diseases and certainly not preventing them. And so if you can complement that with an integrative or holistic approach, that's always the best way to go. So I think we are running out of time. Let's see if we have one more question we can answer real quick if we have time. Pasta is a grain, how could it be bad? Well, it depends on what it's grown in, right? Is it genetically modified grains that it was made out of? And how much you cook pasta too, right? So al dente has less sugar than if you cook it to death, right? So those are some of the ways you can manage, you know, sugar with pasta, is how much you cook it. But grains, you want to be careful because many of them are they contain gluten. Gluten is genetically modified in most cases. And so again, you want to be careful eating genetically engineered food. They're not natural. And so they can cause some problems. And the other thing is grains are just pure sugar, you know, just like fruits are pure sugar. So you just want to be careful and make sure that you're balancing it out with other forms of other macronutrients, good protein. And again, good quality fats would probably be better than a lot of sugar. So that's all the time we have for today's show. Thank you so much. Your questions and comments are always appreciated. And until next time, I send you many blessings. Thank you for listening.
Join us next time on Awakened Wellness with Mylaine Riobe, MD, to learn how spirituality, ancient traditions, and cutting-edge science are merging to create a new paradigm of wellness. Awakened Wellness airs every Wednesday at 12 a.m. and 12 p.m. Eastern Time, with live video shows every first and third Wednesday at 12 p.m. Eastern of each month. Meanwhile, you can join our Facebook page at facebook.com/awakenedwellness and let us know what you'd like to discuss on future episodes. Dr. Mylaine is the medical director of the Riobe Institute of Integrative Medicine in Jupiter, Florida. For more information, visit riobeintegrativemedicine.com. This show is part of the Dream Vision 7 radio network.
This is Dream Vision 7 Radio Network, uniting mankind with universal love. Our shows are created from the heart, bringing each listener to a place of divine enlightenment. Breathe, relax, and enjoy.